Hello again. Today we're going to talk about references. Now, unless your brain is one of those that can take a mental snapshot of an object and then recall little intimate details on site and have it be completely 100% accurate, you're going to need some kind of reference when you're drawing to see how objects interact in space, to look at proportions and see how they relate to one another, and just it's always good to have a solid foundation to work from. Now the best references come from things that you can actually see. So if you're drawing a desk and you have a desk in your house or your art space, that's pretty easy to draw. Or like hands are pretty easy because you've got hands in front of you. You see them pretty much every day. For faces, I like to use a little hand mirror here. So if you notice, all the expressions in Yellow Peril are actually expressions that I use. Even the ladies. The ladies all look like my faces. It's kind of screwy. But this is a nice little hand mirror. It's got a big end. One side is bigger, one side is smaller, so I can look in the creases in my eyeballs and stuff. The internet is also pretty helpful for photo referencing, especially if you draw traditionally like I do. So I could just stick my laptop up here and have Google image search running. Sometimes I search through stock image collections like iStock Photo, or I don't remember what the big one is, but Flickr is good too. Flickr is actually probably more safe than Google image search, not because of the adult filters, but because you can search through Creative Commons libraries, which are they have some licenses. Creative Commons is it's kind of the it allows you to use reference material without having to pay huge royalties, depending on how they set up the license. The comic is actually under Creative Commons, so you can remix it for free as long as you don't try to make any money off of it. But that's somewhat more safe if you're going to be leaning heavily on your reference, like if you're going to be almost tracing stuff. Like Shepard Fairey, the guy who does Obey, he got into trouble by using a Google image search of President Obama, and he used an AP photo and pretty much traced it. Well, I don't know what his process is, but he used that photo and it was so recognizable that the AP photographer recognized it, and so the AP sued Shepard Fairey, and I think the suit is settled now. But to avoid that kind of headache, you can search through Flickr for Creative Commons stuff. I think you can do like license-free searches in Google. You just have to put that in the tag when you're typing it. But if you're kind of an old fart like me, you prefer to have your reference material in hand so you can flip through it. And that's when you need a whole bunch of reference books. Now I've got a whole library full of shit that probably won't be useful for everybody. But if you are a cartoonist and you draw characters and you want to draw better characters, more expressive characters, there is one absolute essential book that you must get. And this is for cartoonists, comic book artists, illustrators, animators, anyone who draws characters. And that's this big ugly thing, the Animator Survival Kit by Richard Williams, Director of Animation for Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So let's take a look at this big ugly bastard to see why it's so great. Woo! Well, first of all, it's gigantic, so, you know, if you're on the subway and someone's giving you mess, you can always knock them out with a big-ass book like this. But it talks about things like perspective and timing and squash and stretch in your characters, which are pretty essential for getting expressions out of motions, like, you know, standing a certain way. Sometimes you need to, like, stretch a object to see if it's in to communicate that it's in motion. So while most of the hints in most of the stuff in this book are about animating and walk cycles and different poses, it's still pretty good for communicating motion in your still images, because animation is essentially just a series of still images, and the more motion you can communicate through your still images, the better your animation will be, and the better your comics and cartoons will be, because you'll be able to communicate effectively that this shit is in motion. So you know, things like this, like extreme stretches like this. This is a great still shot for any cartoon of a guy sneaking, and if you see it in motion, in animation, man, that looks amazing. So this is a book that you need to get. if you decide that you are serious about drawing characters and drawing cartoons. And you'll notice most of this stuff is very cartoony. It's not realistic at all. But a lot of these same principles apply to doing, realistic comics. Sometimes when you see a comic and it's pretty stiff, even though it's drawn really realistically, it's because they don't cheat it. Like, there's no stretch or squash in the figures or in the action, and so it looks stiff. And so to avoid that, you wanna learn about that kind of shit. And this is the perfect book to do it. If I was a smart person, I would put a link to an Amazon link for this so that I would get, a couple cents every time you buy this book. But I'm not that clever. So just go out and buy this sucker. There's another book I like to reference for facial poses and stuff, and it's called Stop Staring. This is actually more related to 3D animation, so if you're not a 3D animator, this is probably not the most helpful book for you. But I like it because it talks about the different facial muscles, the different directions your face pulls when it's making its when it's talking or making expressions. It talks about modeling and stuff like that. So, I find this to be a pretty helpful book, just to keep in mind how the face moves and how the muscles pull along the skull, that kind of stuff. It's more appropriate for 3D animation like Maya and other programs like that. But, I found this helpful. And then everybody needs a big-ass anatomy book. I don't care what kind of illustration you do. But if it deals with people, you're going to need a big-ass anatomy book. I think I inherited this from my dad. He used to be a physician, so there are a lot of anatomy books lying around the house. And this is the one that I like to pick up. Has bone structure. Let's see. I marked off a couple sections because some of this has a lot of nudity in it because it's a real anatomy book. And sometimes you're going to need to see how objects move and shit, which includes naked parts. This is nice because it shows you the face muscles and some different expressions and how you look with your skin on and with your skin off, and how the skull moves and that kind of stuff. That's pretty cool. I like this neck pose, this extreme stretch here, and then you can see all the muscles and how they work in there. Let's see, what do I have bookmarked here? Arm muscles. Arm muscles are pretty cool. This is how they look with no skin. This is how they look with skin. That kind of stuff. What else have I bookmarked? Oh, the end of this has some neat little demonstrations of the planes of the head. So this is what a head looks like as a square. This is the base primitives. And they cut it up further. You can see the planes. This is the cheek. This is how the nose interacts with the forehead. Side view, and then an actual head. Oh my gosh. So you can see the skull here, muscles and stuff, hands, all that good stuff. So you need to get yourself a big-ass anatomy book. If you're drawing people, get an anatomy book. Even if you're doing like crazy anime style with anime proportions and all that shit. You need to know how the body works. The best way to see that is with an anatomy book. Now, other things you'll need reference for, of course, drapery, which is clothing. That's pretty easy. You can just put on some clothes and look at yourself in the mirror, or get a friend of yours to put on stuff and take some photos and stuff like that. And just see how the folds react to the clothing when it's in motion, and lighting and that kind of stuff. So these are some ideas you can use in your own work to use references or to find references, some helpful books and stuff. If you've got some good references that you use, I know there are a couple of iPhone apps out there. There's a pose app. I don't remember what it's called, but it has a whole bunch of different poses. Please let me know. Send a comment in, video comment, or write a comment on the site, whatever. But if you have some good references, let everyone know, and so we can steal your ideas and you can steal mine. So, thanks for tuning in, and I guess I'll check you later. Bye.